My name is Eleanor Ruth Halloway. I was married to Richard for 42 years, lived on the same patch of land outside Fox Bend, Oregon, and made peace with the idea that my life would end where it began among pear trees and the kind of silence only honest land can give you. 3 days ago, we buried my husband. And just yesterday, my son pulled the car onto a dirt road near the base of Iron Ridge, left the engine running, and said with that flat, measured voice he inherited from me, "This is where you get off." Mom. I remember the wind catching the edge of my coat as I stepped out. I remember the dust rising as he slammed the door behind me. I remember not crying. But this story doesn't start there. It starts with a casserole dish and a coffee mug that didn't belong to me. The day after Richard's funeral, I stood in our kitchen, staring at the clutter of sympathy, half-eaten pies, flowers already wilting in their foil wraps, and a mug that said, "Best Grandpa Ever" in crooked black lettering. Lucas brought it. My son, the real estate analyst from Seattle who hadn't called in 5 months, but flew in first class to deliver a eulogy that made even the pastor blink. He said all the right things at the pulpit, but that mug, clean and smug on my counter, said everything else. He had no intention of staying. Neither did my daughter Erin. She'd cried at the grave, mascara bleeding into her scarf like someone in a made-for-TV drama. But by dinner time, she was scrolling Zillow listings and talking about how Mom really ought to be somewhere warmer, somewhere with support. Support. That's what they called it now. Back when Richard was sick, support meant changing his sheets, grinding his pills, and walking him out to the porch just so he could feel the breeze for 5 minutes before the pain made him shut down again. They missed all of that. But now that he was gone, they had plans. Big ones. And as I looked around my kitchen, I felt something settle in me. Not fear, not sadness, something harder, something cold, something that remembered, something they weren't ready for. The morning of Richard's funeral, the sky threatened rain but never followed through. It just hung there, gray, heavy, undecided, like everyone else. The ceremony was small, just as he'd wanted. No speeches beyond the pastor's, no fanfare, no slideshow of our life together. Just the sound of dirt hitting a pine casket and the distant hum of orchard bees. I stood between Lucas and Erin, though I might as well have stood alone. Lucas kept glancing at his phone, wrist flicking like a tick, as if timing something. Erin dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from a leather clutch that probably cost more than our first car. No one stayed long afterward, just the locals, some retired farmhands, a few neighbors from the ridge, and Pastor Lot. They offered polite condolences, casserole dishes, and stories about Richard's quiet kindness. How he once pulled a calf out of a ditch during a storm. How he refused to cut down the wild pear tree at the edge of the property because the birds liked it. Nobody mentioned Lucas or Erin. Nobody asked where they'd been during the last 7 months of his life. That evening, the house was too quiet. Even the fridge seemed to hum differently, like it knew something had shifted. I made up the guest rooms, just in case they wanted to stay a few days. When I told them, Lucas raised his glass halfway, then set it back down without a sip. "Actually," he said, clearing his throat, "we were hoping to go over some things tomorrow morning. Just to be practical." Erin nodded, barely glancing up from her phone. "The estate," she said, like it was a spreadsheet. I looked between them, still in the clothes I'd worn to bury their father. And in that moment, I knew. They hadn't come home to grieve. They'd come home to collect. They waited until after breakfast. I'd made scrambled eggs the way Richard liked them, slow, low heat, a dash of cream. Old habits. They didn't touch theirs. Lucas opened his laptop right at the dining table, the one where we'd celebrated every birthday and every Thanksgiving until they started sending polite regrets and last-minute cancellations. He positioned it carefully, just like Richard used to with blueprints. Only Lucas was showing me slides, not walls. "I've been talking with a firm," he said. Brightfields Group. They're interested in developing the property. Sustainable agriculture co-op meets private estate. It's very forward-thinking. He said all that like I was supposed to be impressed. Mom, Aaron added, this house is lovely, but it's a lot. Don't you think it's time you had help? Help? I let the word hang in the air like smoke. Lucas shifted, pulled up another tab financials. We ran the numbers. Between taxes, maintenance, and medical expenses, the farm isn't sustainable long-term. Brightfields is offering a strong buyout. 7 figures. You'd be set for life. I looked down at my coffee, then at Lucas. Set, I repeated. Like a dinner table. Like a trap. Lucas ignored the comment, tapping his keyboard. We've already taken steps, actually. Aaron and I had Dad sign the transitional documents months ago. Just precautionary. We needed to protect the property. That's when he slid the papers across the table. Clean, crisp. Too clean for a man who couldn't hold a pen without trembling. I didn't touch them. I never saw Sharon's letterhead on this, I said, referring to our family lawyer. Lucas's smile twitched. We went a different route. Faster. Aaron jumped in. It's already in motion, Mom. All that's left is your relocation paperwork. The eggs on their plates had gone cold. I realized so had everything else. The next morning, I found a suitcase by the door. It wasn't mine. A tidy black roller bag with a green tag that read E. Halloway in Lucas's handwriting. Erin stood in the foyer with her coat already on, smiling like this was some kind of gift. We thought it'd be nice to take a drive, she said. Show you Sunnygrove. It's a beautiful place, Mom. Trails, gardens, a community center with art classes and yoga. They even have a koi pond. I didn't answer. I just stepped into my boots and grabbed my purse, the old leather one with the scratch across the flap and the hidden zipper inside. I'd stitched that lining myself during Richard's last hospital stay. My hands had trembled then, too. Lucas drove. Aaron sat beside him, chatting lightly about the facility's amenities while the town slipped away behind us. I watched the orchards fade, one row of pear trees after another, until even the barn roof disappeared from the rearview mirror. But we didn't head toward town. We didn't take the turnoff for the highway. Lucas stayed on a back route, winding through pine and alder, the road narrowing with each mile. 20 minutes in, he pulled onto a gravel turnout beside a field choked with wild grass. He put the car in park, left it running. This is where you get off, Mom. The air left my lungs slowly, like it had been waiting. What are you talking about? Erin said nothing. She looked away, chewing her thumbnail. Lucas leaned over, popped the passenger door open. You'll be fine. There's a gas station about a mile up. We packed your meds and some cash. You can call someone from there. I stared at him, at the man who used to sit in my lap with skinned knees and stories about dinosaurs. There was no trace of that boy. Just a stranger, telling me to disappear. So I did. But not the way he expected. I stood there for a long moment after they drove away, gravel still settling where their tires had kicked up dust. The morning air bit at my cheeks, laced with cedar and something sweeter, the last bloom of wild pears. Strange how even betrayal can smell like spring. I didn't cry. I adjusted my purse strap and began walking. The road curved through the edge of Iron Ridge National Preserve, a place Richard and I used to picnic before the kids were born. Back then, the world felt generous. Like all we had to do was keep showing up and the trees would keep growing. No, each step hurt. My left hip ached. The shoes I wore for Richard's funeral weren't meant for distance, but I kept walking. It took nearly 2 hours to reach the edge of town. I passed familiar fences, mailboxes I hadn't noticed in years, and the old McKinney dairy, long since shuttered. At last, I saw the red neon buzz of Grant's General, flickering like a lighthouse in the fog. Inside, the air was stale with popcorn oil and pine cleaner. I must have looked like hell. Mrs. Halloway? The voice came from behind the counter. Tucker, the owner's son. Maybe 22. Are you okay? I straightened up and nodded once. Just need to use your phone. Honorable mine got left behind. He handed it over without another word. I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. Sharon Lee, our family attorney. She answered on the second ring. Sharon, it's Eleanor. Eleanor? Where have you been? I tried to reach you after the service. I've been detoured, I said. But I'm back, and I need you to meet me at your office. Today. I paused, glanced down at the hidden zipper inside my bag, fingers brushing the edge of the envelope tucked behind my pill case. And Sharon, I added, bring everything. Sharon's office still smelled like lemon oil and dry paper. She didn't waste time with small talk, just poured me a cup of weak coffee and shut the door. I reviewed the documents Lucas submitted, she said, sliding a folder across the desk. It's bad. The signature doesn't match Richard's last known samples, and none of it was filed through me. I pulled open my purse and retrieved the envelope. Inside was the original deed, 18 acres in my maiden name, purchased before Richard and I ever married. Land we never transferred, just kept tucked away like a safety net neither of us talked about. Sharon's eyes widened as she unfolded the deed. This includes the well, she whispered. And the main irrigation access. I nodded. It's the part Brightfields can't build without. That was my first thread. The second came with a call to Jasper Kane, a retired USDA compliance officer and an old friend of Richard's Prest. I told him what happened carefully, without tears, and asked him to look into zoning changes filed for our region. He called back 20 minutes later. The proposed development would cross into a conservation buffer, he said. If you still hold that land, you can challenge the permit directly. The third thread was local. I stopped by the Fox Bend Recorder, slid a business card to Talia McCoy, the editor, and the granddaughter of our old neighbor who Richard once helped fix a busted tractor in a thunderstorm. You want to run a story? She asked. On a land grab? I want to run a story on betrayal, I said, and on the people who mistake quiet women for weak ones. By sunset, the threads were knotted tight. Lucas and Aaron had taken everything for granted, the house, the orchard, even my silence. But they forgot one thing. I helped build every inch of this life. I remembered where the seams were. And now, I was pulling. They called that night Lucas first, then Aaron. I didn't answer the first 2 times. Let the third ring just long enough before picking up. Mom? Lucas's voice was tight, controlled. Where are you? Alive, I said, which is more than you counted on. There was silence. Then a crackle of speakerphone as Aaron's voice jumped in. We've been worried sick. We didn't know you'd actually walk all that way. No, I corrected, calm as winter frost. You didn't care if I walked, collapsed, or disappeared entirely. Come on, Mom, Lucas snapped. You're being dramatic. Am I? I asked. Or is it just inconvenient that I didn't vanish on cue? I let them squirm in the silence for a beat longer before laying it out. You have one chance. Withdraw the fraudulent will, sign everything back to me, house, land, business, and I'll give you each $50,000. Clean break. No lawsuits, no charges. Lucas laughed. It sounded like he was trying too hard to sound amused. You think you can bluff us? The paperwork's solid. It's forged, I said. And Sharon is ready to testify under oath. I also spoke to zoning. You'll never get permits without my 18 acres. You don't want to start a war, Mom, Aaron said, her voice thinner now. No, I replied. I didn't, but you did, on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere. They didn't answer. You have 24 hours, I said. After that, the deal is off, and I move forward with fraud charges and elder abuse claims. I hung up before they could respond. Sharon looked up from across the table, her legal pad already half filled with notes. They'll never agree, she said. I'm counting on it, I replied, because now I wasn't just building a defense. I was preparing to strike. The next morning, I was waiting on the courthouse steps when it opened. By 9 a.m., Sharon had filed a formal injunction to freeze all transactions involving the property. A copy went straight to the county clerk, another to Brightfield's group, and a third to the district attorney's office just in case. I wasn't taking chances. From there, I walked 2 blocks to the community bank where Richard and I had kept our accounts for over 30 years. The branch manager, Russell, recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Holloway, I heard about Richard. I'm so sorry." I nodded. "Russell, I need you to flag any unusual withdrawals from the farm's business account, and I need full statements going back 6 months." He hesitated for a breath, then leaned forward. "You think someone's been—" "I think someone has already helped themselves." He printed the records without another question. By noon, I had what I needed. A flagged transfer, $50,000, moved from the farm's reserve fund 3 days before Richard's funeral. Labeled Capital Restructuring, signed digitally by Lucas. It wasn't just fraud now. It was theft. I walked back toward Sharon's office, the folder tucked under my arm, heart steady. This wasn't about anger anymore. This was clarity. I passed the park where Erin used to play as a child, back when she insisted on being called Scout because she thought it sounded brave. I passed the church where Richard and I renewed our vows for our 25th anniversary. I passed the school where I used to run bake sales, help backstage at plays, kiss boo-boos in the nurse's office. This town had held our entire lives, and now it was holding me up. I pushed open Sharon's door, lifted the folder, and placed it on her desk. "They want a war," I said. "Let's show them how I fight." We met in Sharon's office just before 4. Lucas arrived first, jaw tight, sleeves rolled like he had something to prove. Erin followed, her makeup too perfect for someone who claimed to be devastated. She clutched a designer tote that didn't match her voice when she whispered, "Hi, Mom," like that single word might undo a roadside abandonment. I didn't say anything. Sharon handed them the documents, clear, direct, legally binding. "You'll sign here," she said, tapping each page. "Acknowledging that the prior will was fraudulent. You're relinquishing any and all claims to the property, the farm, and all associated assets." "This says we give up everything," Lucas said, flipping pages like he might find a loophole. "Yes," I said. "But you offered us money." "That was yesterday," I replied. "That offer expired." Erin's voice cracked. "Please. We panicked. We didn't mean for it to go this far." "You meant to take what didn't belong to you," I said. "You meant to erase me. Quietly, cleanly." Lucas crossed his arms. "You'd really send your own kids to jail?" I met his eyes, steady as stone. "The woman who would have forgiven you died on Iron Ridge." He looked away first. Erin's hands trembled as she signed. Tears fell onto the page, smudging her name. Lucas followed, more grudging than broken. When they finished, Sharon collected the pages and slipped them into her folder without ceremony. "What happens now?" Erin asked. "Now," I said. "You leave Foxbend. I don't want to see either of you here again." Lucas opened his mouth, then shut it. Outside the window, the wind shifted. Clouds moved across the orchard ridge like slow bruises. For a moment, no one spoke. Then I stood, gathered my purse, walked past them both. They'd come to conquer, but they left empty. The house was waiting when I returned. Same worn porch steps, same creak in the 3rd floorboard, same scent of wood smoke lingering from Richard's old flannel shirts, still folded in the bedroom dresser where I'd left them. But everything felt different. Not because it had changed, because I had. I moved slowly through each room, resetting what they'd disturbed. Lucas had left his laptop on the kitchen table, half a whiskey glass beside it. Erin had left her silk scarf balled up on the arm of the living room chair. I folded it carefully, set it in the donation bin. Upstairs, I found the closet doors flung open, drawers ransacked, like they'd still been searching, even after losing. In the hallway, I paused by the linen closet. Behind the shelf where we used to keep the winter blankets, I retrieved the small lockbox Richard and I had called Plan C. Inside was the final set of documents, account backups, deed verifications, and a handwritten letter he'd meant for me to open only if things went sideways. I didn't cry when I read it. I just nodded. We'd always known the orchard might outlive us. I hired a new operations manager the next day, Jenna Collins, daughter of one of our longtime orchardists. She'd studied sustainable agriculture at Oregon State and returned home right when I needed her most. I gave her full rein to modernize, but with one rule: never sell the land. We also started setting up the Richard Halloway Agricultural Fellowship, aimed at helping first-generation college students from rural Oregon study regenerative farming. It felt like something Richard would have loved, something he would have written on a notepad at 5 a.m., barefoot in the kitchen, waiting for coffee to brew. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The war was over, but the rebuilding had just begun. Summer came slow that year, like the land was still deciding whether to forgive us. The pear trees bloomed heavy branches, bowed with fruit so thick the limbs had to be braced. Jenna said it was the best harvest in over a decade. I told her it was the land's way of saying thank you. I started spending my evenings on the porch again, in the rocking chair Richard built for our 30th anniversary. It groaned the same way it always had. Familiar, honest, alive. Some nights I'd sip tea and listen to the wind cut through the orchard rows. Other times, I'd bring out the old ledger and sketch ideas for what came next: farm dinners in the barn, school programs, a co-op store run by locals. One evening, my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. The message read, "Mom, I'm sorry. Please. Can we talk?" It was from Aaron. I didn't open the others, but I recognized the pattern. There had been 13 like it since the article in the Foxbend Recorder ran. The one where they printed the headline, "Widow Outwits Developer Scheme, Saves Family Farm." I deleted the message. Not out of spite, out of peace. Lucas never contacted me again. Word around town was his firm let him go after the forgery scandal. Erin lost her condo in California, the banks clawing back whatever money she'd used to prepay her new life. I didn't rejoice in their collapse. That's not justice. Justice is knowing I stopped them before they ruined something sacred. Justice is sitting here, watching the orchard glow under a lavender sky, knowing Richard's work and mine didn't die on that gravel road. It lived. It continues. And it will outlast us both. If you're listening, wondering what I would have done differently, here's your answer. I would have spoken up sooner. I would have trusted my instincts the first time they spoke over me like I wasn't in the room. But I'm speaking now. And the land is listening,